anywhere in the Bay Area or anywhere, he should go to the nearest law enforcement agency and turn himself in.
And there's a chance that man could be watching this interview.
That's true.
I've had 11 years patrolling this lake, and I've seen a lot of people cut up by boat accidents and this, but this is one of the worst things I ever witnessed, for no reason at all. Just a hooded man came up with a pistol drawn on him, tied him up, and then told him he had to kill him.
At the beginning, I did think I was going to die, and so from that moment on, one has to have certain goals that you have to set. The first goal, of course, was to live.
And we will try to do whatever we can to help this man.
On December 20th, 1968, shortly after 11 p.m., as a woman named Stella Borges was passing by Lake Herman Road, near Vallejo, California, her headlights swept across two dead bodies. Their car was parked in a gravel turnout, and one body out of the two was lying 28 feet away from the car. The woman was shocked by the scene, and sensing potential danger, she continued driving until she reached the police station. The police arrived immediately, and it turned out that the bodies found were of teenagers who were on their first ever date. 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old David Arthur Faraday were two high school students. David was still alive when police arrived, but died before he could reach the hospital. The couple had planned to attend a Christmas concert that evening. Instead, they decided to park Faraday's mother's car on a gravel turnout along Lake Herman Road, which is popular among young couples due to its secluded location known for its privacy. However, their evening ended tragically when they were ambushed and shot by an unknown assailant. As they were seeking a bit of privacy, another car showed up just beside theirs, rolled down its windows, and told the teenagers to get out of their car immediately. Feeling scared, Betty and David hesitated to hear what he said. The man instantly got out of his car and fired a warning shot into their car's rear left wheel, housing with his .22 caliber pistol to make them do what he was saying. Betty and David instantly scrambled to exit their car, but before the couple could fully comprehend what was going on, the killer took aim at David and fired a single shot that soon ended his life. Betty immediately started running away from the car, and the killer started following her. He shot 5 times in her back, and she fell at a distance of 28 feet from the car. As the killer had ended the lives of both teenagers, he calmly returned to his car and drove off into the darkness. Nearly half a year later, on July 5, 1969, at 12:40 a.m., an unknown individual called the police. The call was made to the Vallejo Police Department, where the caller claimed responsibility for the recent attack on 2 teenagers. During the call, the individual provided details about the crime scene that had not been known by anyone yet. The caller spoke in a calm and deliberate manner, and his voice was described as low and monotone. "I wish to report a double murder. If one of you goes a mile east on Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They've been shot by a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." As it turned out, what he said was exactly true. Police rushed to the spot told by him, and 2 bodies lying motionless were found in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Just before that, the bodies had been discovered by 3 teenagers, who were celebrating Independence Day. The 2 victims were identified as Darlene Ferrin, who was 22, and Michael Mageau, who was 19. Both bodies had been hit several times, and even many bullets had passed through Michael's body and into Ferrin's. Darlene tragically lost her life in the attack after being shot directly into her lungs and heart, while Michael managed to survive the ordeal, despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest. Further investigation revealed the scene of the night when they had been shot. Darlene and Michael parked their cars at Blue Rock Springs Park on the night of July 4, 1969. Suddenly, another car pulled into the parking lot and stopped beside them, but before they could even say anything, the car drove away quickly. About 10 minutes later, the same car returned and parked behind them. A person got out of the car and walked towards their car while carrying a flashlight and a 9mm Luger gun. When the individual got close, he directed the bright, blinding, and disorienting light from the flashlight directly into their eyes, and then immediately started shooting at them. The couple suffered 5 shots, and both Darlene and Michael were hit by several bullets. The attacker then walked away for a bit, but came back to shoot them 2 more times each, before driving away from the park. Michael, who survived the attack, described his attacker as a white male who appeared to be around 26 to 30 years old, weighed between 195 and 200 pounds or even more, was 5 feet 8 inches tall, and had short light brown curly hair. On August 1, 1969, 3 infamous letters purportedly written by the killer himself were sent to 3 different newspapers, the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. A piece of a cryptogram had been attached to each of the letters, and the letters were written in crude handwriting, with nearly identical content, and contained a message that would become infamous. The letter stated, "Dear Editor, this is the murderer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman, and the girl on the 4th of July near the golf course in Vallejo. To prove I killed them, I shall state some facts that only I and the police know." In between confessing to murders, the letters contain specific details about the attacks, including details about the brand of ammunition used, the number of shots fired and where they were fired, and the clothing worn by the victims. The letter further went on to say, "Here is a part of a cipher. The other 2 parts of this cipher are being mailed to the editors of the Vallejo Times and San Francisco Examiner. I want you to print the cipher by the afternoon of Friday, August 1, 1969. I will go on a kill rampage Friday night. I will cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend." At the end of each letter was a cryptic section consisting of an 8-line series of characters. These characters included a mix of Greek symbols, Morse code, weather symbols, alphabet letters, and astrological symbols. Following the demands of the killer, which instructed the editors to publish the cryptogram, and threatened further violence if they didn't comply, both the Vallejo Times-Herald and the San Francisco Chronicle printed their parts of the cipher in their next editions. However, the San Francisco Examiner initially hesitated to publish their part of the cipher. They had doubts about the authenticity of the letter, and were cautious about potentially fueling panic or providing undue attention to a hoax. Consequently, they waited until Sunday to publish their part of the cipher, after evaluating the situation more thoroughly. The published cipher by the San Francisco Examiner still did not completely obey instructions by the killer, as they published the cipher on the 4th page instead of the 1st page, as said in the letter. This cipher was published with a request by Vallejo Police Chief Jack Stilts, who highly doubted the authenticity of this letter and published, were not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer, and requested the writer send a second letter with more facts to prove his identity. Then on August 7th, the San Francisco Examiner received another letter from the killer in response to a request from the Examiner's reporter Paul Avery, for more details to prove the authenticity of the killer's claims regarding the murders of Betty, David, and Darlene Ferrin. This letter began with the salutation, "Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking." This marked the first time the killer used the name Zodiac to identify himself in his correspondence. In this letter, the Zodiac provided additional details about the murders that had not yet been released to the public, and were secret between the killer and police. Additionally, the Zodiac also mentioned that, when the police crack his code, they will have me. Meanwhile, Donald and Betty Harden, a couple living in San Francisco, came across the Zodiac Killer's cipher in their morning newspaper, and were able to solve it. The cipher was decoded to read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill." The Zodiac Killer continued by saying in cipher that he would not reveal his identity or his name because if he did, he might disrupt his ability to continue his collection of slaves for his envisioned afterlife, and that he is killing because his victims will become his slaves in the afterlife. However, the group of 18 letters mentioned in the cipher has remained unsolved to this day. On September 27, 1969, two college students, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were enjoying a picnic at Lake Berryessa on a small island, when Cecilia spotted a man walking towards them. She alerted Brian to the stranger's approach, expressing her concern. However, Brian reassured her, dismissing the situation as nothing to worry about. Minutes later, the man came within 20 feet of the couple, and drew a gun as he approached. The man was wearing clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes, and a black executioner-type hood with a bib-like device on his chest, that was bearing the Zodiac symbol on his chest. The man aimed the firearm at them and demanded the couple's money and car keys, stating that he had just escaped from prison after killing a prison guard, and now his intention was to flee to Mexico. The man further asserted that he had already stolen a car, but it was, in his words, too hot. Responding to the threat, Brian retrieved his car keys and a mere 50 cents from his pockets, and gave them to the assailant. The man pocketed the sum and tossed the car keys back to the couple. After providing his explanation about going to Mexico, the man pulled out a 3-foot clothesline and directed Cecilia to use it to tie up Brian's hands. Following Brian's restraint, the assailant then proceeded to bind Cecilia's hands as well. The couple initially thought it to be a robbery, but in the midst of this terrifying ordeal, Brian vividly recalls the chilling words uttered by the man, "I'm going to have to stab you people." He then proceeded to stab both of them. Hartnell sustained 6 stab wounds, while Cecilia endured 10, leaving the victims in critical condition. After carrying out the brutal attack, the killer proceeded to hike approximately 500 yards up to Knoxville Road. Once there, he took a black felt-tip pen and drew his distinctive cross-circle symbol on the door of Brian's car, and just beneath it, he wrote. Then at 7:40 p.m., an unknown person called the Napa County Sheriff's Department. The caller said, "Napa Police Department, I want to report a murder." "No, a double murder. They're 2 miles north of Park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. I'm the one that did it." The phone used by the purported killer to call the sheriff's department was found to be located just a few blocks away from the sheriff's office, and approximately 27 miles or 43 kilometers away from the crime scene at Lake Berryessa. Detectives at the scene managed to lift a still wet palm print from the phone, hoping it would provide a crucial lead in identifying the killer. However, despite extensive efforts, investigators were never able to match the fingerprints of any known suspects or individuals. Meanwhile, despite the severity of their injuries, Hartnell and Cecilia managed to remain conscious. Their plight was discovered by a fisherman and his son, who happened upon the scene, and they swiftly transported Brian and Cecilia to the hospital. Cecilia stayed conscious and described the attacker to Deputy Sheriff Richard Collins, even though she was badly hurt. Both Cecilia and Brian were quickly taken to Queen of the Valley Hospital in Napa by ambulance for treatment. Sadly, Cecilia's condition got worse during the ride, and she fell into a coma. She never woke up and passed away 2 days later because of the injuries from 10 stabs in her body. Brian survived and shared his story with the media.
Early last Saturday evening, Celia Shepard and Brian Hartnell, both in their early 20s, were sitting on this knoll of land overlooking part of Lake Berryessa. They thought they were alone, but there was a third man on this knoll, a man who wore a medieval-style executioner's hood, carried a knife and gun, and intended to use them.
I considered him a robber. I had absolutely no thought that he was anything but that. And when we were at this robbery stage, I didn't consider any real threat to my life or to the girl or anything. I really didn't consider this, but I really wanted to help him. And
Did he seem as though he would like your help at all?
No, he didn't, and he didn't even end up taking the money. But I
bear no grudge.
Well, of course not. I don't think that he was acting under his total complete consciousness. And when a man is, if you don't mind using the word sick, you can't hold this against them. But the real concern that I have is that he doesn't do this again. I'd like to see some people save this experience.
Brian will probably be able to leave Queen of the Valley Hospital fairly soon. But where he's going from here is being kept secret in the event that the man who attacked him and killed Cecilia Shepard on Lake Berryessa a week ago Saturday tries again. Brian made it for two reasons some people might regard as intangibles, but reasons that for him were enough: a strong faith and an equally strong will to live.
On October 11, 1969, mere 2 weeks after Lake Berryessa murder, the killer struck again, this time in the affluent neighborhood of Presidio Heights in San Francisco. The victim was a cab driver named Paul Stein. At the intersection of Mason and Geary Streets, Stein picked up a white male passenger as a fare in his taxi, requesting to be driven to Washington and Maple Streets. For reasons unknown, Stein drove 1 block past Maple to Cherry Street. Shortly afterwards, at approximately 9:55 p.m., when the car came to a full stop at the side of the road, the passenger aimed his 9mm handgun directly at Stein's head and shot at him. Stein died in an instant, and the passenger stole the car's keys, Stein's wallet, and a section of his blood-stained shirt. Meanwhile, 3 teenagers who happened to be near the crime scene witnessed the crime and immediately called the San Francisco Police Department while it was happening. They saw the killer wiping down the cab before walking away towards the Presidio, 1 block north. Patrol officers Don Falk and Eric Zelms responded to the call and spotted a white male walking along Jackson Street. They observed him stepping onto a stairway leading to a residential home's front yard. The officers estimated the pedestrian to be 35 to 45 years old with a crew cut, slightly older and taller than described by the teenage witnesses. However, there was confusion in the suspect's description, as the police radio dispatcher had mistakenly alerted officers to look for a black suspect. Therefore, Falk and Zelms didn't stop the white man, and instead just asked if he had seen anything unusual in the area. The man replied that he had seen someone waving a gun around a couple of blocks to the east. Believing this to be a potentially significant lead, the patrol unit immediately sped off in that direction, leaving the white male unapprehended. Later investigation into the man revealed that the man's jacket had some stains of blood, potentially Stein's blood, but until now, the police had completely lost the golden opportunity to capture the man, and he remained unidentified. 2 days later, on October 13th, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac, claiming credit for the murder, and taunting police for not apprehending him. The letter also contained a torn section of Stein's bloodied shirt as proof. The letter read, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did it to the people in the North Bay area. The San Francisco police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly, instead of holding road races with their motorcycles and seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly waiting for me to come out of cover." Ending the letter, the Zodiac threatened to kill school children on a school bus and said, "School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kids as they come bouncing out," and the letter ended with a Zodiac sign. After witnessing the murder scene of Stein by the Zodiac Killer, the 3 teenage witnesses collaborated with a police artist to create a composite sketch of the killer. However, a few days later, they worked with the same police artist again to prepare a second composite sketch, possibly refining or adjusting details based on further recollection or information. Just a couple of days later, on October 22, 1969, at 2 a.m., an individual claiming to be the Zodiac Killer placed a call to the Oakland Police Department. During the call, the person demanded that one of 2 prominent lawyers, Francis Bailey or Melvin Belly, appear on the television talk show AM San Francisco, which aired on KGO-TV and was hosted by Jim Dunbar. The caller, purporting to be the Zodiac, sought to have one of these attorneys appear on the show to discuss his case or engage in dialogue. Following this demand, Belly agreed to appear on the show, anticipating further communication from the purported Zodiac caller. During the show, the Zodiac made good on his promise and called the program, not once, not twice, but a staggering 54 times within a span of 2 hours.
Talk to us. Just tell us what's going on inside you right now, Sam, please.
I have headache.
Right. How long have you had those headaches, Sam? In a long time?
Since I killed a kid.
Well, was it before December that you had the headaches?
Yes.
Were you in service that you might have had an injury in service? Did you ever fall out of a tree or downstairs? Were you ever unconscious?
I don't know.
You don't remember. Does aspirin do you any good?
No.
Doesn't do any good. Sam, that stuff never did me any good either when I had headaches. Sam, let me ask you a question. Did you attempt to call this program one other time when Mr. Belli was with us? And you couldn't?
What?
Did you try to call us one other time, about two or 3 weeks ago when Mel Belli was with us?
Yes.
And we
couldn't get through?
Couldn't get through, the phones were tied up, was that it?
Yes.
Sam, let me ask you this. There's some reason why you go to a particular doctor or a particular priest, and some reason why apparently you wanted to talk to me or Lee. Is it that you feel that we have compassion for people who get in trouble? Or is it you feel that we can do something for you? Or is it you feel that we have enough integrity that if we promise you something, that we're going to stick to it? Well, let's find out why he wanted to talk to. Why did you want to talk to Mr. Belli, Sam?
I don't want to be hurt.
However, each time he called, he uttered only a few words or often none, before just abruptly hanging up, leaving the hosts and viewers perplexed by the cryptic and repetitive nature of the calls. Despite the persistent calls and the Zodiac's apparent willingness to engage in dialogue, no meaningful communication was established, except for the fact that the caller chose his name to be Sam, when Belli requested a less ominous name. The caller expressed reluctance to reveal his true identity and cited fear of facing the gas chamber, which was California's method of capital punishment at the time. Belli arranged to meet the caller outside a shop on Mission Street in Daly City. However, the individual failed to show up for the rendezvous. Subsequent investigations traced the call back to a mental patient named Eric Weil, leading investigators to conclude that he was not the Zodiac Killer. On November 8, the Zodiac mailed another letter. On the outside of this letter, it was written, "Sorry, I haven't written, but I just washed my pen." On the inside of the letter, it read, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I thought you would need a good laugh before you heard the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on your front page? I get awfully lonely when I'm ignored, so lonely I could do my thing." This time the cipher proved to be a hard nut to crack and remained unsolved for half a century. Recently a team of citizen codebreakers succeeded in cracking this cipher that had remained unsolved for 51 years. Known as the Z340 message, it contained 340 characters, including a mix of letters and symbols. The breakthrough came when David Oranchak from the US, Sam Blake from Australia, and Jarl van Eyck from Belgium revisited the cipher using Blake's decryption software. In a YouTube video, Oranchak explained the decoding process and why it took so long to be decoded. Ultimately, the cipher was translated as, "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show," which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me. Where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise. On November 9, 1969, the Zodiac mailed its longest message to the police. In the chilling 7-page letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, the Zodiac said, "Up to the end of October, I have killed 7 people. I have grown rather angry with the police for telling lies about me. So I shall change the way I collect slaves. I will no longer announce this to anyone. When I commission my murders, they shall look like routine robberies, killings of anger, a few fake accidents, etc." The Zodiac went on to say that the police will never catch him because he has been too clever for them, and he states 3 reasons for this. "I look like the description passed out only when I do my thing, the rest of the time I look entirely different. As of yet, I have left no fingerprints behind me. Contrary to what the police say in my killings, I wear transparent fingertip guards. My killing tools were bought through mail-order outfits before the ban went into effect, except one, and it was bought out of the state." Zodiac also claimed that he was leaving fake clues for the police to give them some busy work to do to keep them happy. The letter further went on to say that just 3 minutes after he had shot Paul Stine and left his cab, 2 policemen had actually stopped and spoken with him near the crime scene. He claimed, "I was walking down the hill to the park when this cop car pulled up, and one of them called me over and asked if I saw anyone acting suspicious or strange in the last 5 to 10 minutes. I said yes, there was this man who was running by waving a gun, and the cops peeled rubber and went around the corner as I directed them, and I disappeared into the park a block and a half away, never to be seen again." Alongside the disturbing account of his encounter with law enforcement, the letter also included a bomb recipe and a detailed diagram of the explosive device. After this letter on December 20th, exactly 1 year after the first 2 murders, another letter was received from the Zodiac. This letter read, "This is the Zodiac speaking, I wish you a happy Christmas. The one thing I ask of you is this, please help me. I cannot reach out for help because this thing in me won't let me. I am finding it extremely difficult to keep it in check. I am afraid I will lose control again and take my 9th and possibly 10th victories. Please help me, I am drowning. At the moment, the children are safe from the bomb because it is so massive to dig in, and the trigger mechanism requires much work to get adjusted just right. But if I hold back too long from number 9, I will lose all confidence in myself and set the bomb up. Please help me, I cannot remain in control for much longer." This letter also included another swatch of Stine's shirt that Zodiac had torn. Just like these letters, Zodiac engaged in a long series of letters and ciphers with the authorities. His next letter was received on April 20th, 1970, and it included a 13-character cipher. The Zodiac claimed that if police succeed in decoding this cipher, they will eventually get the real name of the Zodiac. However, to this day this short 13-character cipher has remained unsolved. In this letter, the Zodiac also drew the diagram of the bomb and claimed that he was going to kill children on a school bus with this bomb. Lastly, he also said that until now he has killed a total of 10 people. On July 26, 1970, the Zodiac sent a letter in which he said that he had planned to torture his slaves in paradise. Moreover, the letter shed light on the meaning behind the Mount Diablo code, a reference to a cipher previously sent. He explained that this code pertained to geometric angles, known as radians. On October 7, 1970, the San Francisco Chronicle received a small 3x5-inch card, which came to be known as the 13-hole punch card. This card was just like the previous letters sent by Zodiac, meaning it was signed by the Zodiac and bore his distinctive symbol, but this time, the card came with the exception that a small cross on the card was drawn using blood, and the card had 13 holes punched in it. The message on the card was constructed by cutting out words and letters from an edition of the Chronicle newspaper. The words, "The pace isn't any slower. In fact, it's just one big," were clipped from the comic strip. The letters, cards, and ciphers didn't seem to stop. On October 27, 1970, Zodiac sent a Halloween card and claimed that he had killed 14 people till now. The infamous words in his Halloween card read, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." The final known letter attributed to the Zodiac was received on January 29, 1974, 3 years after the last letter. Unlike previous letters, which often contained cryptic codes and messages, this letter was relatively short and straightforward. In an unexpected twist, the letter praised the film The Exorcist, and described it as the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen. The letter ended with a cryptic reference. It read, "Me, 37. San Francisco Police Department, 0. This reference is attributed to the killer's claim that he had murdered 37 people up to that point. After this letter, many letters and ciphers were still received by editors and newspaper companies, but none of them are widely attributed to Zodiac, and they are just considered to be the works of some journalists to keep attention on the case alive. Over the years, law enforcement officials and amateur sleuths have investigated numerous individuals as potential suspects in the Zodiac case. The killer's cryptic letters to the media, along with his taunts and threats, generated widespread fear and fascination at the time. The suspects range from convicted criminals to ordinary citizens, who bear some resemblance to the police sketches of the killer. However, none of these suspects have been definitively linked to the crimes, and the true identity of the Zodiac remains unknown. To date, there have been several instances of individuals claiming to be the Zodiac. These claims have ranged from credible confessions to attention-seeking hoaxes. Some individuals have come forward with detailed accounts of the crimes, while others have provided little or no evidence to support their claims. In most cases, these claims have been dismissed by law enforcement officials and experts due to a lack of credible evidence. Out of thousands of suspects, Gary Francis Post is one of the most notable suspects in the case. In October 2021, the Case Breakers, a team of specialists comprising former law enforcement investigators, journalists, and military intelligence officers, announced a new development in the case. They claim to have identified Gary Francis Post, who passed away in 2018, as the man responsible for the string of murders attributed to the Zodiac killings in 1968 and 1969. The Case Breakers stated that they uncovered Post's identity after years of investigating new forensic evidence and his darkroom. They pointed to an image found in Post's darkroom, which purportedly showed scars on his forehead that matched a sketch of the Zodiac. Additionally, they asserted that the Zodiac ciphers pointed to Post as well. Furthermore, the team claimed to have linked Post to a sixth killing, previously determined by police to be unrelated to the Zodiac case. Post passed away at the age of 80, reportedly suffering from various illnesses including sepsis, septic shock, dysphagia, and vascular dementia according to his death certificate, and has never been confirmed to be the Zodiac. Arthur Lee Allen is another one of the most infamous suspects in the Zodiac case. He was investigated by police several times at the beginning of the murders, and was the subject of several search warrants over a 20-year period. Allen had a troubled history, having been discharged from the U.S. Navy without honor, and later fired from his job as a primary school teacher due to allegations of sexual misconduct. His troubled past raised suspicions among investigators when they began looking into the Zodiac case. Allen first came under suspicion in 1969 after he was seen near the scene of one of the Zodiac's attacks. He was interviewed by police at that time, but no conclusive evidence linking him to the crimes was found. However, he attracted further attention in 1971, when Allen's friend told officers that he had expressed a desire to kill people and had used the name Zodiac. Another prominent suspect in the case is Ross Sullivan, who was a troubled individual who worked at the Riverside City College Library in the late 1960s. He resembled the police sketch of the Zodiac and reportedly had a fascination with cryptograms and ciphers. Moreover, his co-workers reported being suspicious of him when he disappeared for several days without telling them any cause. Sullivan also struggled with mental health issues, including bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, and was hospitalized multiple times for treatment. Until now, the investigation into the Zodiac case has yielded an extensive list of potential suspects, with approximately 2,500 individuals having been considered at various points in time. Among this vast pool of suspects, many have emerged as credible contenders, their connections to the case supported by compelling evidence or circumstantial factors. While the true identity of the Zodiac remains elusive, the persistence of law enforcement and the dedication of amateur sleuths continue to narrow down the field of suspects, offering hope that someday justice may be served for the victims and their families.